Welcome to the Fountain Studio celebration. Last week I challenged you, like the 4 friends in our Mark story, to get together with 2 or 3 others and share ways that you could collectively carry someone who can't carry themselves, to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves, and to basically be on about supporting one another in doing the Jesus-y things that need to be done. A number of you have reached out and asked how to connect with others. So if you would like to connect with a couple of other people to share ideas and to challenge one another to be on about what you're feeling called to pursue, send the office an email at welcome@weputlovefirst.org with 4 friends in the subject line. Be sure to include your name, your location, and your phone number, and then we'll do our best to connect people so that you can take the next steps toward getting some dirt under your fingernails. Some of our most effective outreach and missions have started in just these kinds of grassroots ways. Plus, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and forward this video to friends and neighbors. Every interaction counts. In the meantime, from wherever and whenever you're joining us, we're glad you're here.
Join us as we get in the Spirit. As we gather in this sacred place, let us open our minds to the challenge of reason.
Our hearts open to the healing of love.
Our lives open to the calling of conscience.
And our souls open to the comfort of joy.
Astonished by the miracle of life.
Grateful for the gift of fellowship.
And confident in the power of the living faith.
We celebrate this time together.
Here we gather, here we come together, seeking wisdom, seeking truth. Minds are ready, hearts are open to receive what each can give. Drawing deep from wells of knowledge, sharing insights old and new. As we gather, as we come together, finding wisdom, finding truth. As we gather, as we come together, seeking comfort, seeking strength. Minds are ready, hearts are open to receive what each can give. Needs and fears expressed and honored, care extended, warm and free. As we gather, as we come together, finding comfort, finding strength. Wide world over, we will come together, seeking justice, seeking peace. Minds are ready, hearts are open to receive what each can give. Deep respect and deep compassion, lives committed to the cause. Wide world over, we will come together, bringing justice, bringing peace.
Let's affirm the Fountain's mission together.
As followers of Jesus,
We put love first.
Attention is the ability to totally engage body, mind, and spirit in the task at hand, and thus see the infinite playing as the finite. I pass through life in a daze, convinced that the ordinary events of every day are, of all things, profane. So I divide my attention, and therefore myself, losing sight of the unity implicit in diversity. Having devalued the ordinary, I seek refuge in the extraordinary, becoming dependent upon those who encourage my disparagement of the profane, thus strengthening their monopoly of the sacred. Attention demands the abandonment of both sacred and profane. It negates the monopoly of the priest and returns me to the awareness of self in every act of self. For the person with attention, every day becomes the very day upon which all the universe depends.
Move me, move me, move me to do your will. Move me, move me, move me to do your will. Move me, move me, move me to do your will. Move me, move me, move me to do your will.
We gather today longing for that which will sustain us, hungry for a new life and thirsty for grace. We come together anticipating an encounter with the Spirit.
We know that Jesus took bread and broke it and blessed it and fed his disciples and asked them to feed others. We know that bread should be broken and shared with everyone until all have enough and then some.
We know that the Spirit will help us as we reach out to the world as Jesus' people. In this time of quiet openness and in the meal, may we taste of the goodness that inspires us to take courage, to overcome our fears, and grow in our commitment with Jesus to healing the world.
May we be nourished by this time together, that we may nourish others, and may our hearts be open to the grace our lives depend on. This is our prayer.
We offer this time of quiet, bringing our whole selves in the name of the one who taught his first followers to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Move me, move me, move me to do your will. Move me,
Families in Spruce Pine, North Carolina are living in temporary travel trailers after their mobile homes were destroyed by storms after Hurricane Helene. Insulation kits can cost hundreds of dollars per trailer. United Methodist Volunteers in Mission are using hay bales as an inexpensive but effective solution as teams help the families prepare for winter.
These bales of straw cost about $7.50 a piece, so $75 to $120 to insulate them with straw. We want to make sure that the water lines don't freeze and that they got water. We've also got heated water hoses where they're hooked up to their well.
When the storm hit, there were 9 families right here on the creek. The water rose so fast, the trailers overturned. They rolled.
The families were evacuated by police and fire crews and taken to a shelter.
There were a lot of government officials there, and there were a lot of people there that were asking for ID, asking names, such. They got worried, and they got concerned. In addition to that, they had a truck stolen. So one of the vehicles, one of the only few that still worked, was stolen.
Families returned to the trailer park.
They actually stood their trailers back up. They pushed them and got them back up onto the wheels, and they cleaned them out and started living in them again. Broken windows and mud and the whole 9 yards. Sleeping in the car at night, being in the trailer during the day.
Niño, vengan acá. Para decirle lo que está diciendo, venga.
The United Methodist Committee on Relief helps the people most vulnerable following a disaster.
The county was at a standstill as to how to help, and that's when they reached out to the church. And I'm glad that they did. I'm glad they heard that the church was here. It opened the door for a lot of things to happen. I'm just really proud to be a part of this. You know, to see this come together and see these families back in a safe place to live in what's going to be a very long, very cold winter time.
Every day, the Fountains strives to put love first, both in person and online.
And if you're one of the many regular online viewers, we're grateful for your participation as a digital member.
Every week, you hear about all the many ways you can give electronically to support this online outreach, like using the QR code on the screen, going to give.weputlovefirst.org, or downloading the Vanco mobile app. Then, when you're on our secure giving site, be sure to look for the line that says Studio Celebration Donation.
A contribution here lets us know that you're out there, that the studio is important to you, and that you want to be a part of supporting this growing digital outreach.
So, wherever and whenever you're watching, we're glad you're joining us.
Thanks in advance for supporting the studio financially.
Hear the call of Jesus stirring in your heart, a voice of love that calls to you today. So follow Jesus, follow Jesus, follow Jesus with love. In a land of plenty, children cry in need. Stir up your love to feed them every day. So feed the hungry, feed the hungry, feed the hungry with love. Living without shelter, lost and all alone. Stir up your love to house the homeless ones. So house the homeless, house the homeless, house the homeless standing on your doorstep, not a friend in sight. Stir up your love to welcome strangers in. So welcome strangers, welcome strangers, welcome strangers with love. Listen to their voices all around the world. Stir up your love to serve all those in need. Go serve the needy, serve the needy, serve the needy with love. Call upon this nation, brothers, sisters, all. Stir up your love for justice in our world, and work for justice, work for justice, work for justice with love. Follow Jesus, follow Jesus with we offer our hearts to cherish one and all. We offer our arms to brace against a fall. We offer our ears to listen carefully. We offer our hands to build community. We offer our gifts to live abundantly, that all the world might know respect and dignity.
Let's start off reviewing the order in which our Gospels were written. Mark, then Matthew and Luke, then John, way down the pike. Because John has a different timeline, different theology, and portrays the characters so differently, scholars believe very little, if any, of Jesus' words in John are the authentic Jesus. We know that John was written long after Judaism was undermined by the Romans having destroyed the temple, and after the Jesus people had been kicked out of the synagogue. Why were they kicked out? Because historically, there was a serious competition for adherence between the compromised remnants of Judaism and the Jesus followers. So, John, more than any of the other Gospels, discredits the Jews by making them the villains in the story. As such, you've got to be careful reading John, because it's been the source of justification for many anti-Semites to this day. As is common in scenes in John, the crowd is muttering against Jesus because they are literalists. In verse 42, the Jews base their complaint against Jesus' claim to be bread that came down from heaven on the fact that they've known him from his childhood. They know his family home, his parents, his earthly roots. John, though, is all about the more cosmic Christ. He has no infancy narrative or virgin birth scenarios and is unconcerned with Jesus' earthly physical history. Unlike the other Gospels, John emphasizes Jesus' spiritual and mystical characteristics. So in today's passage, John compares and contrasts the old manna in the wilderness experience of Moses and this new notion of a bread of life that is directly tied to Jesus. John takes advantage of the Jewish identity of the complaining crowd and recalls their own history. Those listening to Jesus begin to murmur against Jesus and his gifts of heavenly bread, even as the ancient Israelites began to murmur or complain against Moses. First out of hunger in Exodus, and then against the monotony of the manna diet in Numbers. And note, Jesus is not talking about communion here. He's talking about a mystical, spiritual understanding of who he is and the life-giving way of being that he has to offer.
Our words of wisdom are excerpts from John chapter 6, verses 35 through 51.
Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Then the Jews began to complain about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven.
They were saying, Is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say, I have come from heaven?
Jesus answered them, I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats of this bread will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh.
Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.
Ever gone grocery shopping on an empty stomach and without a shopping list? Everything that is the absolute worst for you looks especially attractive. And for a lot of people, the shopping cart ends up all ultra-processed food-like substances and not enough nutrition. Not to mention the sticker shock at the register. Shopping without a list risks spending your time and money on food that will not only be unfulfilling, it'll make you sick. And life is like that too. A smorgasbord of options competing for our time and attention. Too often our priorities have about the same foresight as an unplanned trip to the grocery store. And the things we end up giving priority to are not only not what we need, but bad for us. To have any control over our lives, we have to decide in advance what we will give ourselves to. Because without a plan, we end up with a cart full of stuff that may taste good, but leaves us spiritually empty. But there is a solution. You just need the right diet. High protein, sugar busters, Atkins, raw foods, keto, body type diet, caveman diet. Well, and then there's that really wacko option, the one John mentions in our passage today, the bread of life diet. Evidently, it offers full nutritional value. Jesus says, I am the bread of life, and promises that people on his program will never hunger or thirst ever again. What? Why haven't the diet gurus caught on to this? It combines both low carb and high protein, right? Jesus says, the bread, carbs, that I will give is my flesh, protein. Wow! Unless, of course, you're on a gluten-free diet. John evidently didn't count on you. I guess you're out of luck. Hang on. Literalism alert, right? But sadly, 2,000 years worth of Christians have gotten themselves tied in knots over this. When Jesus says, I am the bread of life, and the bread I give is my flesh, he is not talking about bread or flesh. In John, Jesus calls himself the gate, the light, the vine, the living water, the shepherd, and none of those are literal. When John has Jesus say he is the bread, he is offering a way of life that sustains, nourishes, and fulfills. When he says the bread is his flesh, it's like you or me using the expression, let's get down to the meat of it. Not a literal meat, but the nourishing core of his message. Compassion, justice, radical hospitality. And remember, Jesus' words don't have anything to do with communion. Literalists are projecting that back on the story. The chapter begins with a telling of the feeding of the 5,000, where Jesus multiplies loaves and fish. The crowd, motivated by physical hunger, follows Jesus because he's giving away free food. So Jesus tries to redirect them and pivots from the physical bread to a spiritual metaphor. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger. But the crowd still misunderstands, taking him literally. And I can't imagine how frustrated the historical Jesus would be with how far afield the church has wandered for thousands of years with arguments over whether communion is literally the body and blood of Jesus or not. At least John Wesley steered us a little bit back toward Jesus' original intention. Wesley said communion is a means of grace by which we experience the inclusive love and acceptance Jesus modeled when he shared meals with people. That's why we have a communion table and not an altar. That's why we welcome everyone at communion and don't require you to believe a list of unbelievable things to participate. That's why when we share the elements, we don't say the body of Christ or the blood of Christ. We say the bread of life and the cup of God's mercy. I think what John was trying to convey was that when we embrace Jesus as the bread of life, we are acknowledging that Jesus sustains us spiritually like food sustains us physically. Jesus, being identified with bread, embraces a symbol that says, what I'm on about, what I stand for in life, is a basic necessity for wholeness. It's soul food, if you will. And like any physical diet, spiritual nourishment only works if it becomes an everyday lifestyle. Be generous, care deeply, work for justice, show hospitality, resist vengeance, speak healing words. When Anna Quindlen gave the commencement address at Villanova University, she said, "People don't talk about the soul very much anymore. It's so much easier to write a resume than to craft a spirit. But a resume is a cold comfort on a winter night, or when you're sad or broke or lonely, or when you've gotten back the test results and they're not so good." So here's what I wanted to tell you today. get a life, a real life, not a manic pursuit of the next promotion, the bigger paycheck, the larger house. Get a life in which you are generous. Look around at the azaleas in the suburban neighborhood where you grew up. Look at a full moon hanging silver in a black, black sky on a cold night. And realize that life is the best thing ever, and that you have no business taking it for granted. Care so deeply about its goodness that you want to spread it around. Work in a soup kitchen. Be a big brother or sister. All of you want to do well. But if you do not do good too, then doing well will never be enough. It's common sense that our spiritual lives are like our physical lives. A steady diet of junk food, unplanned and unexamined, is unfulfilling. It will never be enough. So we just cram more and more. When we share communion, we're not participating in something magic that completes us or getting some kind of spiritual inoculation. We're reminding ourselves that at the center of Jesus' life was a behavior, bringing people together around a meal that is more than just food. It's a symbol of what community can be like. People who in no other conceivable circumstance would be together, coming to share what they have. The rich and the poor, powerful and vulnerable, sick and healthy, strangers and friends, outsiders and insiders, weak and strong, oppressed and the oppressor, marginalized and privileged, young and old, learned and unlearned, the believer and the skeptic, gay and straight, able and disabled, the immigrant and the native born. As followers of Jesus, we are called to not only welcome to the table everyone who hungers for love, justice, and community, but to work to make the world a reflection of that table. How do we get there? By committing to the only diet that, in the end, really matters. Jesus' Bread of Life diet, where the minimum daily requirements for a whole and satisfied life are generosity and gratitude, faithfulness and curiosity, contemplation and action, and perhaps one of the most important elements, dissatisfaction with the way things are in this broken, hurting world. If you've ever been to our Maundy Thursday observance, you know that over the last few years, our communion elements include peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Now, the Pharisees among you may join the crowd in today's passage and murmur and say, that's not proper, that's silly. But consider this. While sacrament isn't a word we use every day, it's helpful to remember that it simply means making something holy or sacred, sacra, usually something very ordinary, like bread or wine. For those who come to Maundy Thursday, preparing PB&Js for the guys at New Leaf Shelter, and then blessing and sharing PB&J communion together, adds a layer of the sacred that makes it impossible to ever eat PB&Js again without feeling a connection to those who symbolically we were sharing the meal with. As one person observed, it made the PB&J a sacrament.
In 1965, a group of civil rights demonstrators were met at the Edmund Pettus Bridge by the police, who violently attacked them. That demonstration led Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to call for a march from Selma to Montgomery in behalf of voting rights legislation then before the U.S. Congress. So a march began from Selma to Montgomery. At the time, I was a social action executive for the Massachusetts Council of Churches. My job was to help organize and send people to that march. But I and others at the Mass Council joined the march on the day before the last day. We were driven to the site of the march after we arrived at the airport, and I spent the night on my raincoat on the ground at the St. Jude Catholic Complex. That next morning, we began that last phase of the march into Montgomery. A decision had been made that when we approached Montgomery, we would take a jog to go through the black community as a show of solidarity and support. I was on the outside and looked down the line of march, and as we were walking along, I could see an African-American woman coming up the line of march, counter to our direction. She looked to be a woman who had known a lot of poverty. Her dress had been washed many 2 times. Her shoes were old and well worn. But in one hand she had a gallon jug of Kool-Aid, and in the other she had 6 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I don't know why, but when she got to me, she shoved those sandwiches into one of my hands and that gallon jug of Kool-Aid in the other. And then she looked at me and said, "Hell, brother, we're gonna overcome." Well, when I looked back up the line of march, she had gone. But I took one of those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, passed them to the person next to me in the line. Then I took that gallon jug of Kool-Aid. I was always proud that I knew how to drink from a jug. Then I handed that to the person next to me in the line, and it just hit me. This is my body broken for you. This is my blood which is shed for you and for many. That remains the most powerful Eucharistic moment of my life. I chilled for a mile after that, and we continued that march on into Montgomery. Once there, in the front of the Capitol, we began a long demonstration. And there we all sat down on the grass, thousands of us. As usual, we had singers and musicians. We had speeches. It was a rousing time together. And yet we all waited for Dr. King because we knew he would bring the message that would close out the event. Finally, the time came for Dr. King's speech. I still regard that speech in Montgomery as the equal of the one that he had made in Washington in 1963. And when Dr. King enters into the last part of that speech, he began a kind of a call and response with himself initially. He shouts out, "How long?" And he responds to himself, "Not long." How long? Not long. How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long, because while the arc of the moral universe is long, it bends toward justice. How long? Not long. How long? Not long. And then he shouted at us, "How long?" And those thousands of people got up off the ground and on their feet and shouted back, "Not long." It would be 3 years before his body would be broken and his blood would be shed. But as long as I live, I shall never forget that wonderful black woman shoving the elements of the Eucharist into my hands and then proclaiming, "Hell, brother, we're going to overcome."
It seems like today, every day, we're presented with more to overcome. The rolling back of basic rights, the casual cruelty of our political and religious leaders, and the mistreatment of the very people Jesus told us to care for. If we're paying attention, And if we have a genuine conviction to grow spiritually, we cannot be satisfied with the way the world is. We know that virtually everything in our culture tempts us to fill our lives with things that are not really filling or fulfilling. When John has Jesus say, "The bread that I give is my flesh," he's not giving us a recipe or a literal menu, but he is getting down to the meat of it. We will only be fulfilled, we will only be sustained when we take Jesus' way of living into our own bodies, into our own daily routines, and make his compassion, his justice, and his mercy the very fiber of our beings. All of you want to do well, but if you do not do good too, then doing well will never be enough. Communion is not some magic ritual that purifies us as individuals. It's about reminding us that we're all in this together. It's about steeling us for the work of overcoming the superficialities of life and giving us the strength and courage to do, ultimately, the only things that will be satisfying spiritually: seeking justice, loving generously, acting boldly, and every day making every encounter with others holy. When Jesus says, "I am the bread of life, you will be filled," it's shorthand for saying, take me to heart, do what I do, love one another, welcome the outcast and the stranger, speak a healing word to the hurting, liberate those who are captive, stand up for those who are oppressed. And like any diet you take on, it only works if it becomes a lifestyle, not something you just do occasionally, apart from the daily grind, but something you practice every day. As we seek to do good, as we seek to follow Jesus' lead, we make the everyday holy, and we put flesh on the claim that Jesus is the bread of life. Be well. Don't forget, if you liked what you heard today, buy me a coffee. The link's in the description.
For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. A shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star overhead. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For woman and man, a place at the table, revising the roles, deciding the share, with wisdom and grace, dividing the power. For woman and man, a system that's fair, and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song. The hands of a child in hands that are wrinkled, for young and for old, the right to belong. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For just and unjust, a place at the table, abuser abused with need to forgive. In anger, in hurt, a mindset of mercy, for just and unjust, a new way to live. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For everyone born, a place at the table, to live without fear and simply to be, to work, to speak out, to witness and worship. For everyone born, the right to be free. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For gay and for straight, a place at the table, a covenant shared, a welcoming space, a rainbow of race and gender and color, for gay and for straight, the chalice of grace. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Justice and joy. Justice and joy.
Let us offer these words of challenge and blessing to one another as we go. May the Spirit bless us, embrace us, and send us forth.
Renewed,
Refreshed,
revitalized,
may we live each day as followers of Jesus,
including all in the circle of love.
and treating all with a spirit of love.
Amen.